Coliseum. Here we are, together.
We get up early in the morning.
Even friends or families here.
It's game day, and this place is special.
This is Bill King at the Oakland Coliseum, the home of the Oakland Raiders.
History lives here.
Number 41, Philadelphia.
Great defense! Holy Toledo! The place has gone wild!
The players.
Intercepted,
Back is Plunkett.
On the run. Touchdown.
That's 1,000 catches for Tim
The
Brown.
moments.
It looks like Clarence Davis. He's been knocked. The Oakland Coliseum is
Oakland Raiders have punched their ticket to the postseason.
And of course, the fans. Raiders! Pride and poise. Commitment to excellence. Raider Nation, it's Oaktown, baby.
Welcome to Mad Bomber Podcast. I'm Johnny from beautiful San Diego and inside of the Johnny's Donut Studios. You know what that means. That means it's another day and another time for the Mad Boomer Podcast. The Mad Bomber Podcast, brought to you by Johnny's Donuts. Tonight we have a special free agent show number 2. The Oracle is just finishing up in his laboratory right now. We had some events this last week we're going to talk about, possibly talk about some Rick Dennison, have some chili. That was a guy that I really didn't care for when he was a Bronco. He was actually a linebacker in the Tom Jackson days, and a tough guy, very tough guy. Came on to be a Super Bowl champion and a Super Bowl champion coach. And we're going to talk a little bit about him. We're going to talk about some new free agent, some guys that shook loose or going to shake loose from the Cleveland Browns. And without further ado, the man, the myth, the legend, the Oracle has been getting a lot of run on Twitter these days. There's women throwing their bras at him, from what I understand, from the third floor. His attorney and I, we finally came to an agreement, and he will be on the show permanently. Now, I had to sign a long-term contract with him. Oracle?
How you doing, Johnny? First of all, I think the women are throwing the bras at my attorney instead of me, but that's a whole different story. You know, I was on the road today, and I drove past a construction site, and it made me think that I feel like they should put a big sign outside the Raiders practice facility that says under construction. And I feel like we're looking for we're starting to understand who the foremen are. We got the carpentry foreman coming in. We got the iron worker foreman coming in. But now we got to understand who are going to be some of the labor that's going to be coming in. So that's what we're going to dive into today, Johnny.
Seems like a lot of guys are going to be getting fired from their jobs here soon, probably right around the 1st of March. So we're gonna see some new foremen. And it looks like the apprentices now, since we're on the construction theme today, are mounting up inside the Indianapolis Combine, where they get to do their dog and pony show in front of the NFL, in front of NFL Network, and of course we get to watch what's his face run the 40. What's that guy from the NFL Network? He always runs the 40 for
Rich Eisen.
That's a good cause. You know, that's turned into something fun. I like watching him. I mean, he can run faster than me, Oracle. I know that, unless I had my motorcycle under me. Quickly, Raider news, and let's get to it real quick. Today is a very, very special day for Raider fans, old and new. Everybody knows this guy. Everybody's revered him. They still sell his jerseys everywhere. And we want to wish a happy birthday to the man, the myth, the legend, Super Bowl MVP, Fred Biletnikoff, Hall of Fame guy. We've had his son on the show, and probably get him again next year. Talk a little bit more about the Bay Area, East Bay, Dublin, Pleasanton days. Johnny Donuts days, Kegger party days, possibly, who knows? But Fred Biletnikoff, you were a little bit younger than him, but as a student of the game, and I mean, when I met the Oracle, we were talking, and he knows more about the Raiders. Actually, knows more about the NFL and than fans from the 70s. This guy's on it. But let me give you my first memory of Fred Biletnikoff, and then I would like for you to share your story. My first game was in 1968, and the only guys I really remember were Darryl LaMonica, Marv Hubbard, they called him Mother Hubbard, and Charles Smith. He was one of my favorite running backs, and Big Ben Davidson, big, wore number 83. He, in fact, Ted Hendricks and him looked like similar, other than Ben Davidson had this handlebar mustache, and he lived in Pleasanton. And he was just like anything else. You'd see those guys. Dublin and Pleasanton back then was just real small towns, and these guys all lived there because it was cheap homes. And I would see that guy around and just always come up to him and say hello. And he was so nice. He had a couple daughters that played in the high school, real tall girls that played volleyball and basketball, good athletes. But Fred Biletnikoff, my first memory of Fred Biletnikoff was a playoff game at the Raiders Stadium, and I believe it was 1970. And it was a mud bowl against the Dolphins. And he made a catch that was just like sinister over the and again, remember, Miami had a great defense back in the day. That was the no-name defense back in the 70s before they had the Killer Bees. Remember, they brought the Killer Bee. They had the Killer Bees in there. Remember, they all had their last name all started with B. But check this out. I saw, and this game was muddy, Oracle. This game was just slamming everybody. You couldn't tell on the Raiders what numbers they were because it was just full of mud. Same with the Dolphins. But he was just, you could tell that he was an artist on the field. He could, the ball was coming to him. It was caught, whether it was high, low. And, there was no instant replay in those days, obviously. But there was some catches that he made in that game that were just phenomenal. And, when you're a kid, 8 years old, 9 years old, and you're watching somebody that this is just one of these guys that's just, you could tell on the field he was different, It was really, really cool for me to watch him play. And I got the pleasure to watch him play until he retired in 1978. And what a great player, what a great pro. And we all know the Stickum stories. And but this guy was he put the fear into defensive backs because his moves were second to none. The Renfro stuff you see now, like the double head bobs and the shoulder drop and then go. Man, this guy, when I saw him, and I don't know what happened before in the 60s or 50s, there was some good receivers from what I understand. Crazy Legs Hirsch, I heard, was another guy that was pretty amazing route runner. But this guy was just a surgeon, And happy birthday to Freddie Biletnikoff. Great man, great Raider, Hall of Fame Raider.
Definitely, man. I mean, and look, for people of my age, we know the Biletnikoff Award, but I feel like very few people my age know about him as a player, and that's kind of unfortunate. I mean, this is a guy coming out of Florida State, great hands, great route runner, and this is in a time where it was a much harder to be a receiver back then. I mean, corners were allowed to jam you a lot more. Even past 5 yards down in today's football, you can't jam a receiver more than 5 yards past the line of scrimmage. Back then, they could jam you a lot more. And so being able to separate, it required a lot more toughness because of the hits over the middle, the hits to the head over the middle. I mean, this is a guy, Fred Biletnikoff. He had 40 receptions or more in 10 consecutive seasons, which is just sensational. It just really shows the year in, year out. We see a lot of flash in the pan players who are really good for a couple seasons, but to be able to do 10 consecutive seasons of 40 or more receptions, that's pretty phenomenal right there. Super Bowl MVP, where he caught 4 passes for 79 yards over the Vikings. The Stickum definitely helped them, but a lot of guys back then were using Stickum, but not as many as guys were as good as him. 589 catches, almost 9,000 yards, 76 touchdowns, 2-time All-Pro, 4-time Pro Bowler. I mean, just a legend in and of its own right. And I love the fact that he wears 25 too. I mean, I don't know if we see most receivers wear numbers in the 80s. I always find it kind of cool that he wore number 25 as well.
Yeah. Well, they just started actually a couple of years ago, right? Everybody was able to use their own number because a lot of guys like their college numbers. So, and then the last little tidbit, 2 last little tidbits, he was a player coach. Yeah. So for the Montreal Alouettes of this Canadian Football League, like and subscribe. We would love you if you like and subscribe. And the last thing of Fred Biletnikoff, if you ever want to read a great book, They Call Me the Snake by Kenny Stabler. He was one of the Santa Rosa 5, and there was a Santa Rosa 5, and that's a great story. There was 5 guys that were hoodlums. Stabler was one, and Biletnikoff was the other. You got to read the rest to see to find out who the rest were. Oracle, this week we had a lot of news coming in out of your Oakland. Did I say Oakland? Out of your Oakland Raider squad. What was something non-player wise that you thought was interesting? I know we discussed it a little bit earlier, and I think you elaborated on it beautifully as you always do. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, I think the biggest thing is getting Rick Dennison as the offensive line coach. This is the guy who was with Clint Kubiak last year in Seattle. He was with Clint Kubiak in New Orleans, and he was with Clint Kubiak about 5 years ago in Minnesota. So this is a guy who's been around the block. Is he the long-term offensive line coach? No, but he's a good guy to have right now to implement the scheme that Clint Kubiak wants to run. And maybe they're able to develop someone down the road when Rick Dennison retires who is suitable for the job. But right now, when the Raiders were the 32nd ranked offensive line last year, they really need someone to come in who's experienced, who's worked with a ton of players, who knows how to be a teacher. So I think this is a real good hire for the Raiders to be able to get Rick Dennison as their offensive line coach. And he wasn't the offensive line coach last year with the Seahawks. He was an offensive assistant, kind of like a senior advisor role. So, I think this is really good, and I'm really excited to see the pieces that they're able to accumulate over the next couple months.
Right, and we're the Oracle and I are big fans of the Just Win podcast, and Marshall Newhouse talks about the anarchy that was going on with the coaching staff on the offensive line. I'm sure there was other places, but the offensive line and Brendan Carroll were just a problem from the start. And so I think that's going to be, and again, Kubiak was the 32nd coach hired. So he was on now it's not like you're getting extras. It sounded like he did a great job. And I think you alluded to the contractor analogy that, you know what, he got his guys, he got his foreman, he got his guys that he wanted. I think first and foremost, they had Rick Dennison as an offensive quality coach. And then they tried to get Otten out of Seattle, and that was denied. So they were basically, okay, he's 67 years old. He was a great Bronco linebacker. Again, on my Twitter page, I mentioned I was not a fan of his. He was a tough player, and he played like a Raider on the Broncos side. Tom Jackson was kind of the big mouth, mouthy guy. This guy was like, he would put a forearm shiver to you after the play was over. And he was also he was also another guy that did go with Kubiak's fathers, and they had Owen Daniels, Arian Foster days. I mean, he was a part of that. Owen Daniels then went to the Broncos and won a Super Bowl. And if you don't know who those are guys that were on the Texans, and then they ended up going to the Broncos. So I think he's a bridge hire. What do you think about that?
I do think he is a bridge hire, but I think this is a good bridge hire to have because, again, like you said, they were late in the process of being able to find guys. And Kubiak's able to get someone that he trusts. This isn't calling around in a frantic way like, hey, will you be my offensive line coach? It's, hey, Rick, we've worked together. Do you want to come aboard? And Rick wanted to come aboard. So this is a good way to be able to get a guy who's able to be familiar with the scheme that Clint Kubiak wants to run. They're both going to be in unison. So now the $1 million question is, what is the players that they want to run their scheme? Is it throwing a bunch of money at Tyler Linderbaum? Is it getting guys that they have experience with, like they had experience with Josh Jones last year in Seattle, like they had experience with Trevor Penning, who they coached in 2024 in New Orleans? Do they go out and trade for a Garrett Bradbury, who was the center in Minnesota when both Clint Kubiak and Rick Dennison were there? So between analyzing the current guys that they have on the team, like Jackson Powers Johnson, how does he fit in the scheme? How does DJ Glaze fit in this scheme? How does Caleb Rogers fit in this scheme? Based on what we've seen from his college tape, it looks like Charles Grant is going to be a very good fit in this scheme. And I think this is someone that Rick Dennison and Clint Kubiak are very excited to see develop and start to become a really good player. And hopefully they're able to utilize the strengths that Charles Grant has to his game, and they're able to really highlight them.
Okay, I'm going to ask the 60-second question here. So you are going to put your Rick Dennison shirt on because you don't have a Rick Dennison hat. You're going to put your Rick Dennison hat on, okay? Talk about Charles Grant and what he did in college and what he can do for the Raiders.
Charles Grant was the number one player coming out in last year's draft in terms of being an outside zone runner. So he was the highest graded player by PFF when it came to outside zone runs. And with the Clint Kubiak scheme and with Rick Dennison being the teacher behind it, this is really a good match between the two. So last year with Pete Carroll, where it wasn't so much outside zone, with Chip Kelly, where it wasn't so much outside zone, Charles Grant now has an opportunity to have a coach and not only a position coach, but a head coach who runs a scheme that's really able to tailor their skill sets to bring the best out of Charles Grant. So I think this is something that I'm really excited for, to see Charles Grant move laterally and work out in space in the run game, not only blocking defensive ends, but getting out to the second level and blocking the outside linebackers or the strong safeties that come down to be the force players, kind of like the eighth man in the box. And because Charles Grant is such a good mover and he's got good size, this is something that could really highlight him being a good player. And I think if they're able to make Charles Grant into a dependable starter, the Raiders could really be saving themselves a lot of money on a very important position.
Absolutely. You want to talk about this guy was a 2-time All-American. Okay. This guy got picked in the 3rd round, and last year's draft wasn't really a slouching on interior linemen. This was one of those picks, and we waited all year, and I think this is another mistake that that Pete Carroll did. You saw in New England, where they used Thayer Mumford a lot. They started doing that at the end with Charles Grant, and he looked really, really like a positive player. He was moving very well, finishing his blocks, and he likes to eat, loves to eat, as Oracle would say.
Yeah, he does love to eat, and definitely. And this is a guy who now we know what he is in the run game. The $1 million question is, how is he going to be in the pass game, especially in drop back passes? And that is passes that don't have play action. That is where he's just going straight back. And when you're able to have play action, you're able to slow down the pass rushers because the linemen initially block run. So the defensive linemen have to initially play the run. And that allows the pass blockers, the Charles Grants, the tackles, a little bit of time to get back into their kick slide. But when it's obvious passing situation and the pass rushers have to pin their ears back and they know that the tackle is going into a kick slide, then how does Charles Grant react in those? How does he react to the counter moves that that these outside linebackers like Nick Benito are going to be able to throw at him? Because that's something that DJ Glaze really struggled with last year. So how is Charles Grant really going to do in that? And that's going to be the $1 million question. And that's where he's going to probably need to really develop his game and take it to the next level.
And against the Raiders are going to have, like, you know, OTAs are all, it's just like going to the combine. Everybody's in shirts and T-shirts. You don't really know until you get the pads on when they start doing a training camp. And I believe that that's going to be where you're going to see if Max Crosby's still on the team. And I believe he will be. And we'll talk about that. This is offense day, guys. Sorry, we're not talking about Max Crosby other than I'm going to be at the Commitment to Excellence dinner on Friday night. We'll talk about that later. But at William & Mary, he didn't allow many sacks and he didn't allow many pressures. So this guy in college was very formidable, BC two-time All-American. So that's kind of, you know, does that equivalate to the pros? I don't know. We don't know. I've seen Robert Gallery get destroyed in the pros. You know what I'm saying? And we just saw Will Campbell get destroyed in the Super Bowl. So we don't know about Charles Grant. Before we move into anything, another topic here, Oracle, you did it. You made someone happy today. Who do you think you made happy today?
Oh. No, Dan, it's not anything you said.
It is.
I'm just in certain moods where I just want to mess with people. And today, Dan, I woke up and I wanted to mess with you. So
he did. What's up, Jeff? Jeff, I know Jeff is in New England, and I'm sure he's not going outside. Hey, thanks for showing up. So now we had some good news as Raider fans this week. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. The Cleveland Browns don't want to block for Shedeur. Did you hear that? They were outside. They were they were just like construction workers. They went outside and they put their sign up. We're not blocking for Shedeur. And I am just joking about that. I totally am joking about that. I don't hate Shedeur. I think he's going to be a good quarterback. Always said that. Always will. But we had somebody that said no mas in Cleveland this year. And let's talk a little bit about him. I'm going to put the video on that you guys can see. Oh, wrong video. Sorry, guys. My bad. Technical difficulties.
Swing and miss.
Let's see. Nope, wrong one. Let's see. Wrong one. Let's see. Where the heck? Oh, here it is. Hey, my producer is asking for the same amount of money as the Oracle. So, like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. If you liked all three of those videos, like right now. So, Oracle, let's talk about number 77 here.
Yeah, this would be Wyatt Teller. This is a guy on the Cleveland Browns who's been with them for the past couple seasons, has had some pretty good seasons for the Browns too. And for some reason, they don't want to bring him back. I don't know what that's all about. How much is Wyatt Teller maybe wanting out? He's like, you know what? I've had enough of this mess in Cleveland. So I want to go somewhere else. But also, the one buyer beware we got to worry about with Wyatt Teller is I'm looking at his medical. And this is a guy in 2024 that had an MCL where he was placed on IR, missed 4 games. And then in 2025, he had a calf strain where he was also placed on IR and he missed 4 games. So how much of this is factoring into the equation? And Cleveland, they have a ton of picks in this year's draft. Do they want to maybe go out and get another lineman, maybe a cheaper option? So I'm a little kind of wondering what the deal is with all that, who's initiating this divorce. But this could be a good pick for the Raiders because coming from the Kevin Stefanski scheme, remember Kevin Stefanski and Clint Kubiak worked together in Minnesota, so they run pretty similar schemes. And I think this could be someone on a lower cost option, considering his injury history, that could come in and maybe be in, if he's healthy, be a dependable starter for them at guard, because we don't know where the Raiders are going to go at guard. What do they think of JPJ? What do they think of DJ Glaze at guard? What do they think of Caleb Rogers? So maybe they want to get someone who has a little bit more familiarity within their scheme and is someone that has been a dependable starter in the past. He's not that old. I think he's like 31, if I'm not mistaken. So
31. Yeah, he was a Virginia Tech Hokie.
Yeah, so this could be a good signing for the Raiders to go to be one of the guys, one of the many guys that I think the Raiders bring in that's new on the offensive line.
Yep. They're also losing their center too, Ethan Pochik, which don't be surprised. He's going to get some run. He had a very good year last year too. Okay, let me ask you a 60-second question here, Oracle. I want you to put your John Spytek hat on again, okay? And you got your Rick Dennison shirt on. You're in this. You guys are together. Is there a chance Dylan Parham comes back to the Raiders this year?
I don't think there's a chance Dylan Parham comes back to the Raiders because I think this is a guy that the Raiders want to move off of. Remember, Dylan Parham was not drafted by John Spytek. He has no familiarity really within this wide zone scheme. Dylan Parham was a guy who in college was about 285 pounds. He would have fit the scheme a little bit better coming out of the draft, but he bulked up to around 325. So I think he's someone that maybe does he go back to New England to reunite with Josh McDaniels? Does he go wherever Dave Ziegler is in the league now because that's who drafted him? So I don't think the Raiders bring him back. He really wasn't that good last year. And I think they might want to get someone who has a little more familiarity within the scheme, and B, is just simply a better player.
I totally agree. I'll tell you what, Dylan Parham just makes you feel so good some games. You'll see him. We've watched games where he gets the Houston Texans. He was out of his mind the whole game. And then against the Giants, he couldn't even block that. He couldn't even block a weak side linebacker coming in on a blitz. It was sad. So and we've talked to the Oracle, and I have talked to some ex-Raider linemen who agree that it's time for him to go. Like and subscribe. So I'm gonna ask you another 60-second question, Oracle. Do you like 60-second questions?
Love them, definitely.
Okay.
As long as people like and subscribe.
No, like and subscribe. Okay. I want you to, let's see, what hat do I want you to put on this time? Oh, I want you to put your Clint Kubiak hat on. Okay. And then I want you to tell me who your starting 5 linemen are for next year's opening game.
Starting 5 offensive linemen in the ideal world of Alex Basualdo / Clint Kubiak would be Colton
You're the
Miller
Oracle. You're not Alex Basualdo.
Sorry. Would be Colton Miller at left tackle. Let's go Charles Grant at right tackle. Let's go Tyler Linderbaum at center. Let's go Trevor Penning at left guard. And let's go Josh Jones at right guard.
Okay. Oracle, I'm going to ask you another question, another 60-second penny. Another question. Oracle, put your John Spytek hat on. Okay. Who would be your alternate lineup? If that one doesn't go, who do you think that would go? Who's your 1A?
So in 1A, the alternate lineup, I'm going to still have Colton Miller at left tackle. I'm going to still have Charles Grant at right tackle. I'm going to have Logan Jones, who it was the Remington Award winner out of Iowa as a draft pick, be the starting center. I am still going to have Trevor Penning as the left guard. And I'm going to have Caleb Rogers winning the job at right guard.
That's awesome. Talk about that draft choice. Even though we're not in a draft show yet, talk about why you would draft that guy. And what's the reasoning? Is there a coincidence in that draft?
I love Logan Jones because, first of all, this is a guy at Iowa, and I'm a big fan of the freaks list that Bruce Feldman puts out every summer for college football players coming that are in college football. And this is a guy, Logan Jones, who, if you're going to pay attention to the combine this week, I'm really curious how he does because Bruce Feldman reported that Logan Jones had a 36.6 vertical jump. He had a 4.09 short shuttle. He had a 470-pound hang clean, and apparently he broke his hand in the winter and says he could have done even better. But most importantly, he had a 705-pound squat, which is a program record for Iowa. And this is Iowa. I mean, Iowa. You think of Iowa offensive linemen, you think of just strong people. And for him to have a program record, that's pretty impressive. And the thing with him is he's a little undersized. He's little over 300 pounds, but the Remington Award winner. He was a first-team All-American. And this is a guy who not very high in a lot of draft boards because he's very scheme specific, but he's very specific to the wide zone scheme that the Raiders are going to implement. So I'm curious to see if the Raiders target him in the third round, maybe even the second round, if they believe he fits the scheme so much and he's going to come in and play an important position. Oh, and by the way, he played every game for the past 3 seasons.
Yeah, yep, he was solid, and there's a couple of centers that I know that the Raiders are going to look at. From all accounts, it looks like the Raiders definitely want to go safety from all the draft guys. They're talking about safety at 36. So that's just a little tidbit to put in your guys' ears. Let's talk about Iowa. What happened to the Raiders, and what happened from the Iowa to the Raiders this week, Oracle?
Yeah, well, the Raiders just hired the running backs coach from Iowa. His name is Omar Young. He was a coach there only last year. Prior to that, he was in the NFL. He was with the Bears in 2022 and 2020. I'm sorry. He was with the Bears in 23 and 24, and then he went to Iowa for 25 last year. So the Bears had Khalil Herbert there, so maybe that's a guy they bring in. But Iowa also had a running back named Caleb Johnson, who was a third-round selection by the Pittsburgh Steelers last year. Now, Omar Young did not directly coach Caleb Johnson because Caleb Johnson got drafted right before Omar Young got there. But I'm sure he talked to plenty of people in the Iowa program that said a lot of good things about him. And Caleb Johnson wasn't able to really get going with the Pittsburgh Steelers last year. They had Kenneth Gainwell. They had blanking on the other guy's name right now, who's really good in fantasy football. But I don't. Maybe the Raiders want to throw a late round pick over to the Steelers if they don't believe that Caleb Johnson's the guy of their future, and maybe the Steelers want to bring back Kenneth Gainwell. So that could be a good fit. And then maybe they just signed Kenneth Gainwell, the Raiders do, to be the backup running back for Ashton Jeanty, because this is a guy who's a nice change of pace back. He was in Arthur Smith's scheme last year, which is a lot of zone concepts. So it won't be he'll have some scheme familiarity. Kenneth Gainwell will. So I think I really think the Raiders go after a backup running back this year. And I really think it's going to be someone on the lower cost side.
Yes.
But I think it's going to be someone who they really believe could be a nice complement to Ashton Jeanty, whether that's Kenneth Gainwell, whether that's Caleb Johnson, whether that's Khalil Herbert, who has experience with Omar Young from their time in Chicago. So I definitely think there's some options to look at. Maybe what's going to be the best cost, because I still think Ashton Jeanty is going to get a lot of carries. And his usage is going to be very high.
Awesome. Oracle, as always, you always have it down. But just in case you know all the answers, I changed the questions. And this is my guy. This is who I would like to see the Raiders get in free agency right here. I've always been a big Algier fan. Always. I think he's great out of the backfield. I think with the zone blocking scheme, I think this guy knows how to do the cut. He can cut back. He's got some freakish speed when he makes that first step. Boom, and he is just one of those guys who reminds me a little bit of Ashton Jeanty. Oracle, let me ask you a question, Oracle. Let me put your John Spytek hat on again. If you're John Spytek, would you consider Tyler Algier?
I would consider Tyler Algier. I mean, this is a guy who has another experience in the zone scheme, and I've always liked his skill set. He's a guy that, unfortunately, because of Bijan Robinson, has never really been a primary back, but they still give him a lot of carries in Atlanta. And also, he has experience being the number 2 back, and with coming to the Raiders, he would be the number 2 back behind Ashton Jeanty. So he's a guy that he's not great with accelerating, but he does have top end speed. He has good size too. I've always been impressed with his physique. I mean, he's got big arms, big thighs, and he has good vision too. So I think he's able to Sometimes with some of these backs like Kenneth Gainwell, they're not the biggest guys. So I think if getting another guy with a big body, a guy, hopefully nothing happens to Ashton Janty, but in the case something does, he could come in and be a little bit of a bell cow back in that scenario.
Well, Rudy has a great question right there. What about Zamir? Is Zamir, and again, do you have someone that you can give at 4th and 1, third and short? Is Zamir White that running back? Now you still have him on the rookie deal.
I think he'll get a shot in camp to be that guy, but I definitely think they need to bring in someone just in case he's not. Okay,
so you want some competition there?
Yes.
Okay, because I believe that Zamir White in a zone blocking, I think he would be good on the 3rd and 1. There used to be a guy for the Raiders that played in the early 2000s, Zach Crockett. And that's kind of what he was. He was kind of a Zamir White type of guy. And I've seen Zamir White run hard. And I just believe that, unfortunately, he wasn't Ashton Janty, because the year before they had the same problems with the offensive line. They gave him the rock. They said, you're going to be our running back, because they were so enamored with his game in Kansas City the year before when he ran over the Chiefs and won the game on Christmas. That's kind of what we're looking with Zamir White. And Huskas asks, we need a Pete Banaszak type fullback. Great question. And you know what? The NFL is going back to the fullback. It is definitely going back that way. Is that going to be a part of the? Is that going to be a part of Clint Kubiak? Is he going to run the tight? Is he going to run the fullback or use a tight end as a fullback?
I think potentially it could be. I mean, he didn't really use that in Seattle last year. It was more 2 or 3 tight end sets. But maybe if there's a fullback that they really like, whether I don't know if Alec Ingold becomes available now that Mike McDaniel's not in Miami anymore. Maybe they throw some money at him. Maybe there's a guy in the draft that they really like. Like when I watched the Indiana game, I think his name is Riley Nowakowski. Who was the tight end for Indiana.
Yeah.
And he could kind of be, he's a tight end, but he almost plays like a fullback too. So maybe someone like him, they're able to target on day 3 too. So, but yeah, no, I've always been a fan of fullbacks. I do think there is a place for them in the NFL. So I would definitely be cool with bringing one in.
Well, like the Niners use Juszczyk.
Yeah, definitely.
And Ricard, and they use Ricard in Baltimore. So that I'm with you, Husk. I believe that this league turns full cycle all the time, and I've seen fullbacks really make a difference, especially if he's a great blocker and a big body. That's always been everybody out there, if you remember John Ritchie, man, that guy was tough as nails. Carmen Carranza, you are here. Thank you. Look at Carmen. The black hole is in the hezzy. Nice to see you, sweetie. Always. I really have started watching more and more film of the John Gruden years recently, just looking at that. And to his fault, he used the fullback a little too much. And I remember Marcel Reese. The Raiders used Marcel Reese as a fullback and as a good passing fullback out of the backfield, almost a little similar to Juszczyk, but just not as tough. So great question, Husk. I think that's an awesome question. We are going to go ahead and go to what is the Oracle want to talk about next? You've been very, very high about 2 guys. I know I want to see a crescendo, and I'm going to ask you another 60-second question. Oracle, put your wide receivers hat on. Okay. If you're a wide receivers coach and you're taking John Spytek out to, not Puerto Vallarta. Let's say you're taking him to Las Vegas, or you guys are going out to see Penn and Teller. What's the one receiver that you're just sitting there? What's the receiver that you want to see on the Raiders next year?
Well, Clint Kubiak was a big part of trading for Rashid Shaheed last year. He was with them in New Orleans in 2024. And when he got to Seattle midseason, they made a midseason trade for Rashid Shaheed. And now that Rashid Shaheed's a free agent, I really think that Clint Kubiak at Penn and Teller is nudging him in the middle of the show going, hey, we got to get Rashid Shaheed. He's worth the money. And I definitely think he is worth the money because we got Ashton Janty, who's a high volume back. We got Brock Bowers, who's really good at working the middle of the field as a big wide receiver, that I really think they need a guy who could take the top off the defense to be able to allow Brock Bowers to work the field a little bit more, because when you have that guy who takes the top off the defense, that puts the fear in the defensive coordinator, and that makes him call some coverages that allow more two deep safeties. And I think that allows Brock Bowers less guys in the middle of the field and the intermediate part of the field to really get open and kind of do his little moves and put them and kind of set some guys up to where Fernando Mendoza could see an open target. So I really think, even though Rashid Shaheed won't be a big volume catch guy, he's not going to be a 10 catch guy on a lot of games. I think the presence of his speed on the field will allow Brock Bowers to be the best version of himself. And that's why I think he will be worth the money that he's going to get in free agency. And the fact that he's going to come in and already know the verbiage of the term and the terminology of everything that Clint Kubiak is going to want to implement, I think it makes more sense.
At $14 million, you better know how to do some breakdancing after the game too. So Oracle, okay, you're Clint Kubiak. How do you insert Rashid Shaheed? Do you put him in a 12 personnel? How are you going to run? What are you going to do with him? Do you put him in with Trey Tucker? How are you going to combo Rashid Shaheed?
I definitely think he works better with Jack Besh on the field, because Jack Besh is kind of the other guy along with Brock Bowers that could work the intermediate part of the field better and allow some, because Rashid Shaheed, I think Fernando Mendoza is a really good, he's a good outside the numbers thrower, but I think maybe he's not got the howitzer arm, but he's able to methodically work the middle of the field. And when you get that guy, kind of like how Tom Brady had Brandon Cooks for in a little bit of his career that allowed Gronk and Julian Edelman to work the middle of the field. I think that's what Rashid Shaheed could do. And he could allow Brock Bowers and Jack Besh to grow into a guy that John Spytek, because he drafted him with the second round pick last year, he really wants to see him get going. So again, it's not the volume of catches that Rashid Shaheed's going to get. Now, I will think he will be good on some end around, some jet sweeps, and some bubble screens because of his speed. But I think him running post routes, him running corner routes, especially off play action. You fake a run to Ashton Janty, you get this linebackers and safeties defending the run, and then there goes Rashid Shaheed zooming by. And then Fernando Mendoza could have an open target down the field. And once that starts happening, that could be someone that defensive coordinators go, oh, no, we got to defend Janty, we got to defend Bowers, and then, we got to defend Rashid Shaheed as well.
Man, I'm really excited for Trey Tucker. As I go good, as everyone knows, when I'm at the games, I see this guy open all the time. And I remember in the Gardner Minshew, Derek Carr days, they just didn't see him. This guy was wide open on a lot of plays. There was a lot of home run balls that were missed by the Raiders, and I don't think that I would let go of that guy. I am a big Trey Tucker guy, big Trey Tucker guy. Rudy has a great question. Oracle, I want to let me ask you a question. If you were John Spytek, would you even consider George Pickens?
I would not consider George Pickens, one, because he's going to command a lot of money. He's going to command top of the market receiver money, as he should. I mean, the way he produced last year, he should want a big contract. But I just think with the amount of money that needs to be thrown at this offensive line, it doesn't make sense to bring in a receiver who's going to command that much money. Also, you got to look at the fact that Brock Bowers is eligible for an extension after next year. So you're going to pay him a lot of money. And you want Brock Bowers to be your high volume target guy. And if you bring George Pickens in, You know, then that's another mouth that you got to feed. So I already think the Raiders have a guy that they could be their volume catch guy. George Pickens, even though he does take the top off the defense and he is a high volume catch guy, he is worth that money. I just don't think it makes sense for where the Raiders are right now.
Right, exactly. That's kind of we're putting the balls on the Christmas tree right now, and we're not ready for the angel. And he's kind of like the angel on top of the Christmas tree. You know, you want to either get a really big time receiver, big time running back, or big time pass rusher. It's not time yet. And I don't want to do that. I put a name to you, and yes, Huska, we're preaching it. I think Raider fans are preaching it. We've talked about it on the show too. We were on the Braden Smith train last week from the Colts. I think both of us fell off that train. Braden Smith has been hurt. When he's playing, he's JPJ, but he doesn't play all the time. And he's had some Barrett Robin years where he kind of disappeared. Where was he? Oh, he's got mental health issues. So it's kind of a Braden Smith. If they sign him, man, it's got to be a team-friendly deal. And again, I like Oracle's starting five. I'm going to be posting that today. I really do like his top five, and I like the 1A too. Before we go on to your favorite pick, I asked you earlier, and I think you were a little bit sour on this guy. Would you bring in? Let's say that we don't go draft a receiver this year, right?
Yeah.
Would you bring in DeAndre Hopkins for 1 year just to be a big body guy for Fernando Mendoza? And I know he doesn't have the wheels he has. If you're going to use the wheels, it's going to be with Tucker probably, or if Rashid Shaheed, if he's here. But I don't hate DeAndre Hopkins coming to the Raiders on a 1 year deal.
I wouldn't hate it either for the right price. I definitely think because he's a veteran, and the Raiders have younger receivers with Jack Bash, even Trey Tucker. It's going to be his fourth year in the league, so he's a little on the younger side. Dante Thornton, who knows who else they bring in. So, yeah, and he's a guy who still has great body control. And with the back shoulder throws that Fernando Mendoza is able to make, that could be a guy who makes sense, especially on third down. He knows how to read zone coverages. He knows kind of the right spot to sit in the defense. So that could make sense for the right price.
Oracle, if you had one receiver to put on the Raiders this year, which receiver would that be?
It would be Rashid Shaheed. But another guy that I want to throw out is Calvin Austin, because Zach Azzani is the new wide receiver coach that's coming in, and he spent the last 2 seasons in Pittsburgh, and Calvin Austin's a free agent for them. And if they're going to spend money on the offensive line, they sign Tyler Linderbaum. Let's say they spend money on a linebacker. Maybe they don't spend a lot of money on a receiver, which I'm fine with because I don't think that's their most pressing need. But maybe you get a guy like Calvin Austin who could come and be a returner. Now, Calvin Austin is not the biggest guy. He's only 162 pounds. He's 5'9". But he's got good acceleration. He's a pretty good route runner. He's got some yards after the catch ability. And for the right price, I think he could be a guy who comes in and he could have a role, and he would make sense because he has familiarity with the wide receiver coach. So if they're not going to get Rashid Shaheed because they're going to spend money on the offensive line, I do think that Calvin Austin is a guy to consider.
Yeah, he's going to definitely get a pay raise this year too. So don't hate that pick either. Oracle, I know that there's going to be one other guy that you were talking about. Oopsie. Jesus, my fingers today. I'll tell you. All right, guys, here we go.
Producer wants a pay raise.
He does.
Yeah.
Is there a possibility? Oracle, let me ask you another 60-second question. If you were the Raiders, would you take a flyer on George Pickens, and how long would you sign him for? Not George Pickens.
Well,
Mike Evans. Let me rephrase that. Oracle.
Yeah.
If you were to pick Mike Evans, would you give him a 1 year or a 2 year deal? And would you like this?
I would give him a 2-year deal, maybe a 1-year deal with a second-year option, if they could do that. But this is a guy, Mike Evans, who has he's going to be a Hall of Famer. He has a long history of being very productive in the league, 1,000-yard season every season. And he has familiarity with John Spytek, who John Spytek was in Tampa Bay with Mike Evans. And Tampa doesn't have quite the same cap flexibility that the Raiders have. And they drafted Emeka Ibuka last year. They drafted Jalen McMillan the year before. They might want to see how those two develop as their 1 and 2 receivers. So maybe Mike Evans looks elsewhere for an opportunity, and he could be this could be an opportunity for him to be the number 1 receiver with the Raiders, him and Brock Bowers together, kind of 1A, 1B, even though they have different roles. And I think because Mike Evans has such good body control and is able to adjust to catches really well, that's also going to work on the back shoulder throws. And he's an outside the numbers receiver. So he could be a receiver that comes in and really helps Fernando Mendoza in his development along the way. So I think for the right price, this can make a ton of sense.
I think so too. There's been a lot of reports, and that's, a lot of clickbaiters for sure talking about it, but I haven't heard anything from his camp yet about where he wants to go. I mean, I've heard from Rashid Shaheeds, and you mentioned that too, that, they posture until the money comes. And again, guys, if you want to sign and make an extra 10, 15% a year, you're going to sign with the Raiders because they're going to be able to save you on taxes. That's the beautiful thing about being in Nevada, is that these guys are coming in here. They have something to offer them. And if the Raiders ever start winning, that's even going to be more of a locomotive, getting even better players at the end of their years. That's when you start seeing the Jerry Rices come in, Andre Rison's come in, the Romanowskis come in, the Woodsons come in, Woodson for the second time. It's set up perfect, and I think the Raiders were very lucky to do this the right way this time. Wait for their coach. We got lucky this year. As bad as this season is, we were lucky that all the cards fell to us. Thank God Dallas helped us out in the very end, because I would have hated beating the Chiefs and then seeing our number 2 pick, although we would have got Arvil Reese, and there's a ton of quarterbacks coming out next year. We would have had to wait another year for our quarterback, and that would have maybe put Kubiak going, maybe I'll go coach Kyler Murray, or maybe, you know what, I'll go to Baltimore. I mean, there would have been more options for him. So, guys, if you liked it tonight, please subscribe. Here's the Raiders draft choices coming up. And again, this is I'm going to watch the combine, even though I hate it. I hate watching these guys parade around, because as soon as I see a guy that looks like he's really, really fast, it always disappoints me, because I'll put his tape on and I'll see that he's a cornerback that always goes for the pick and never plays good man coverage, or, there's always something that bothers me about it. But this is our pick right here. We got 11 picks this year, and we haven't seen the compensatory picks yet. Those are going to be coming out. We got Spillane, Hobbs, and Morig that we'll be getting picks for. So that's kind of where we're at on that. We're going to next Monday, we'll be doing shows every Monday from now on. We will not be going on any other time but on Monday. Guys, the Oracle and I are going on the 11th annual Raider Legends Cruise for a Cause. If you want to go to this cruise, get a hold of me so I can send you to the right lady. Erica Stevens is the person that you want to get with, but let me know, because you're going to get a Mad Bomber discount. So the Oracle and I will be there. We cannot promise that we will be broadcasting from there, because we don't know what their Wi-Fi is like. We're going to try, and we've already set up a few interviews there from Raiders that'll be there. So we'll definitely, if we can get that Wi-Fi working, we'll we'll be coming to you live every night from the Raider Cruise. Although I don't think I'm getting off in Ensenada there, Oracle. I think I'll stay on the ship and eat tacos. What about you?
Oh, I'm getting off. I want to get some tortas. I want to get some horchata. I want all the goods, you know?
All right. And then on Friday, I will be going to my second Commitment to Excellence dinner. And last year I was there. That's Max Crosby. And I was lucky enough to meet him last year. Had a nice little discussion with him. Definitely not going to ask him if he's going to stay. There'll be plenty of people asking him if he's going to stay. Hopefully this isn't the last dinner I ever have with Max Crosby. Look at the Sousa boys. They're making fun of you. El Oraclo.
Yeah.
Son las Oraclo. Oracle. So I will be there on Friday. And looking forward to this, the Commitment to Excellence dinner. For you real Oakland Raider fans, back in the 60s and 70s and early 80s, it was called the Gorman Award. And that was at the end of the year. The last game of the year, they would bring the Raider out with the Raiderettes, and they would give him a trophy. And it was the Gorman Award. It was Tom Gorman, and then his wife, Gussie Gorman, was the once Tom Gorman died, Gussie Gorman was the lady who gave out the Commitment to Excellence. It wasn't Commitment to Excellence back then. It was the Gorman Award for the Raider who most exemplified pride and poise. And they gave that. I remember being there for George Blanda, being there for Kenny Stabler. I think I was there for Phil Villapiano and Pete Bennis. You know what? I can't remember, but I know those three. But look forward. Usually one of the sons, one of the Gorman sons is there. I met him last year. He was blown away that I knew about that. He couldn't believe it. So it's going to be fun. There's going to be some Raiders there. I'm not going to bother anybody for interviews or pictures or anything. This isn't the place, time or place. What I'm going to do there is to be there to celebrate Max Crosby, and the Mad Bomber podcast is in the program. We are a donor for this, so this is going to be exciting for me. I'm going to leave on Thursday, so I will be reporting from there live. Probably do a little snippet, little live snippet, and then put it on the social media. Oracle, is there anything you would like to talk about before we leave? Was there anything else that excited you Raider-wise this week?
I just hope they sign Tyler Linderbaum. That's it. That's all I could keep thinking about. If that were to happen, I would be so happy. So,
you know what? There's a lot of.
Go ahead.
There's a lot of people that are trying to show us PFF like he's the 31st rated passing center. It's like you just don't know what you're talking about. Please, PFF is just it's not for offensive linemen. You cannot rate an offensive lineman on PFF. You have to watch them play the game, and there's a reason why he's going to be highly touted. So all you TMZ reporters, and there's lots of you out there, you know who you are if you're watching. I hope you're not, but if you are, this guy's the real deal. My 1A is Connor McGovern.
Okay.
My 1A is Connor McGovern. He's got some nice film on him. And one thing he does really well, could you imagine the Raiders doing the tush push?
Interesting.
Well, they may even outlaw it by next year. You never know.
Yeah, we never know. But I feel like they would have done that by now. But
no, they have the rules committee. I think it's coming up. In fact, it may, anyway, we'll figure that out. We don't care. But we will see you guys next Monday. Oracle, I'll see you in a couple of days. Guys, Thanks a lot for showing. Hey, man, if you can like and subscribe, I know we're getting a lot of hits. The show's growing, guys. Thank you very much for watching. We really appreciate it. And then we will see everybody next Monday. Oracle, you have a great day.
Good night now.
Good night now.
Roethlisberger. Intercepted again. Picked off by Chris Carr. This is a foot race with Roethlisberger. And there he goes.
timeouts have really changed the situation here.
Intercepted. Back for the touchdown.
The Jets could capitalize. Garner. Well, this is going to make everything move. Everything. They're on to Foxborough. Touchdown.
Tannehill under pressure, and it's intercepted. Tipped and picked off. Maurice Hurst off to the races. Tannehill cuts him down at about the 25-yard line. What a turn of events for the Raiders. Tim Brown deep for the punt from Hendrick. Come Raiders. Down at the 18-yard line. Hendrick knew he couldn't get that kickoff and held on to it.
The penalty they spotted at the 7. Hand off, it's Pryor. Lot of real estate to the 30. Pryor